Hello and welcome to the first debate of the two candidates to emerge from the Ogden primary for mayor. With us tonight is Mike Caldwell and Brandon Stevenson, and we are at the Municipal Building in Ogden with a live audience. My name is Brian Malahy. I'm with Channel 2 News, and it's a pleasure to be with you for this first debate of the candidates. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me just talk about a couple of ground rules first. There will be one question to both of you. The first candidate to respond will have 2 minutes. The subsequent response will be 2 minutes, and then the candidate who responded in the first place will have a rebuttal period of 1 minute. So we'll go 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. I believe I have a coin to determine who would be the first to answer the first question. And before I flip it, I think I should ask you, Mr. Caldwell, would you like to call it?
Sure.
Okay.
Heads.
Tails it is. Mr. Stevenson, would you like to be the first to respond?
I'll let Mike take that honor.
Like Mike take the honor? All right. Sounds good. All right, we had a dry run on the coin toss. The coin toss. Easy for me to say. All right, first question. The current administration has been marked by a series of successes in terms of development of Ogden, but also, I think, some controversy and detractors. You both have been either suggested or outright said to be Godfreyites. Do you accept the label? And whether you do or not, how would your administration differ from the current one? And again, we begin with you, Mr. Caldwell.
Well, I've avoided the forums and blogs because I've been called a number of things in those environments, Godfreyite being one of many. As I've talked to a number of different people, I've tried to run this campaign on a results-based platform. If you look at the projects I've been involved in, the things we've worked really hard on the last number of years, some of those have required cooperation with the city, with the different cities that surround us. As I've worked on the ramp tax and managed that over the last 5 years, we've worked with every city manager and every mayor in Weber County to have successful projects. So to say I'm a Godfreyite or to put me in one camp is extremely unfair. I work for Weber County, I don't work for Ogden City, but we've been very cooperative and collaborative across many different levels. So I think there are some fantastic things. I agree with what you said. In the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 amazing articles in the Wall Street Journal, one recognizing Ogden, Utah as one of the clusters, most successful clusters in the United States in recreation-oriented businesses. Today, we were also recognized as one of the top brain gains in the United States. Top 10 cities that have had college education. We were 30.6% increase in 2000 to 2010 in terms of our populace being college educated. There are 9 other cities ahead of us. Would like to take that front spot in the future, but that is fantastic to have 2 nationally recognized articles in the Wall Street Journal in just the past 2 weeks. I think that's a collaboration across all boards. That's not just one administration. That is a team effort between Weber State, the school district, Weber County, and a whole bunch of different people. So to say I would come in and be just one person or one camp, I think is extremely unfair. I've worked with a number of different people to build large, successful projects, and I'd continue to do that in the future.
Mr. Stevenson, same question for you. Are you a Godfreyite? And whether you are or not, in what way would your administration be different than the current one?
Well, I think I've probably been called worse than a Godfreyite, but I've been on the council for about 8 years, involved in a lot of projects in the city, and I think that I've supported Mayor Godfrey when I believed he was right. And I think that my administration will continue to do what I believe is in the best interest of the community. I can look back to the Solomon Center and the approval of that and the difficulties and the controversies that the city went through at that time. It was integral in helping to build some votes on the city council around that project and making sure that it got passed. And I did it for some very, very good reasons. I did it because it created a synergy that Ogden needed. It created something that was a linchpin for the rest of the junction. Without the Solomon Center project, then the Larry Miller Theaters and the Boyer development in the junction would never have happened. And because it required that the city get involved and engage, and we did with a private-public partnership with the Solomon Center, with Fat Cats and with Gold's Gym. And I think that ultimately I'll defend that decision as being the right decision because the outcome has been very beneficial. Perfect, no, but it has been very beneficial and created that synergy that it brought into Ogden, as well as some additional development opportunities, as well as creating a regional attraction that brought people into Ogden City. And I have a true passion for making sure that Ogden City is someplace where people want to be, not just people that live here in Ogden City, but it needs to be a place where people from outside of our community want to come in, and creating projects that help to focus in that direction is on my list to do. And I guess if that makes me a Godfreyite, then I suppose I'll accept that.
Mr. Caldwell, you have 1 minute, and what I have not heard from either one of you is how your administration would differ.
My administration would differ in terms of the relationships I bring into that position. Like I mentioned before, I come from Weber County, and I've had the unique opportunity to be with almost every nonprofit group within Weber County. We've built the Xterra National Championship. If you drive down historic 25th Street right now, you'll see them setting up for that. We have Lance Armstrong flying in for the first triathlon he's competed in 23 years. I've built those organizations and those events because we've reached across lines and brought a great number of people to the table. That's what I would bring initially into that. I have all that equity and those relationships to bear, and I would look forward to doing that.
Next question, and the question relates to the vision for the city. The current administration seemed to have embarked on a plan to make Ogden an outdoor recreation center. Is that your vision for the city? And if not, what is? And I believe, Mr. Stevenson, you have the first response.
Yes, thank you. I think that is a piece of the puzzle. For sure. And is it only that? Of course not. Will I pursue bringing in outdoor recreation companies and pursuing bringing in events that give momentum to Ogden's business growth? Yes, I will. In terms of holistically looking at Ogden, however, there are a lot of other elements that we need to take into account also. So I'll be looking at making sure that I focus into a couple of different industry clusters, not just the outdoor sports cluster and the high adventure recreation, although that's important, but focus on other industries such as aerospace engineering. Since we have an airport that is underutilized, we have resources at Weber State University, a very educated workforce, and Hill Air Force Base just around the corner. All of those good reasons why we should be good at aerospace as well. High-tech, bringing high-tech companies into Ogden could be just a matter of incubating them right here. And I think that that's an idea that I'll pursue as well, to focus on a cluster and bring in higher-paying jobs in addition to the high-adventure recreation. I think that it does matter in our lifestyle, and Ogden does have a lot to offer in terms of high-adventure recreation. We've got a beautiful vista, the mountains that are unlike anywhere else. And I can't see any reason why we can't celebrate that to the world and make sure that everyone knows that Ogden City is a wonderful place to be, and invite them to come. And high adventure recreation, outdoor focus is one way that we can certainly do that. And we have been doing it successfully, and it's something Ogden can do well.
Mr. Caldwell, same question. If it is an outdoor recreation center, if it's not an outdoor recreation center of the city, then what is it?
I agree that's part of it, but I think the important part of it being an outdoor recreation center is it helps to define who we are. It adds credibility to this community. It certainly adds jobs and everything else, but it tells a story about what's important here. When we started working just after the Olympics, we had, what kind of put the seed into this was during the Olympics, we had 46,000 people come downtown for the torch run. They were inspired by that. It uplifted this community in a very unique way. But the Olympics rolled up the tents and went home. So we had an Olympic Legacy group, the Goal Foundation, that came in. And last year, I was the president of that organization. And we brought 70,000 participants, spectators, or volunteers into the downtown. It showcased some of our highlights and told a story about the quality of life you have here. When we started chasing high-tech companies in 2000 and 2002, a lot of them didn't know what we had here. They wanted quality of life for their employees. They weren't sure if this was a place they could have that. But having the Xterra National Championship, the Dew Tour, the Archery World Cup, one of the most popular marathons in the country, shows that this is a place that is vibrant and healthy and people want to be a part of. It brings those high-tech companies and aerospace companies in because they know when they shut the doors at 5 o'clock, their employees will have things to go do. They will love living here. They'll drop roots. They'll be able to recruit. And that's, I think, the biggest benefit to having that outdoor recreation theme as a part of what we're doing. Certainly adds jobs. There are 110,000 tourism-related jobs in Utah alone. We'd love to have our fair share of that, but I think it helps define who we are as a community and what matters to us.
Mr. Stevenson, 1 minute.
I guess I can't reiterate enough how important I believe that it is that even though the high adventure part of what Ogden is very important, it's not, there's more. And the more is bringing people into Ogden and giving them not only a better place to live, but also improving the vibrancy of our economy. For example, one of the things that over the last several years, I've been an advocate of allowing the BIC, the Business Information Center in Ogden, which is the center that helps small businesses to succeed by helping them to fund them and give them resources that they wouldn't otherwise have, that it allows for these businesses to grow. And when we get them here, the question is, how do we keep them? And how do we give them the idea that Ogden is a great place where they want to come and not just invest their dollars for a little while, but stay and invest their lives and their families and their businesses here in Ogden?
Next question, a lot of discussion in this campaign about creating jobs. How does your job creation plan differ from your opponents? Mr. Caldwell, you're first.
Well, I haven't heard a lot of what Brandon's job creation program is, so I'll tell you a little bit about what mine is, and he'll have the opportunity to retort after that. I think right now we've got a fantastic economic development group in play with Ogden City. They're one of the most aggressive ones in the state, and they've got a great pipeline that is full and have great opportunities. Met with the Boyer Company and what they're doing down at BDO. We've looked at a number of the different bright spots. We've had some huge wins. Within the past week, we were recognized in a number of different publications as the community second largest, or the community in Utah that has the second largest job growth. I think it's in the nation, actually. And that's fantastic. We're 1/10 of 1 point behind, unfortunately, Provo. But to be recognized as a community that has been able to create jobs like that on a national scale means it's not broken. And I'm not going to jump in and make a whole bunch of changes and fix something that has seen a lot of momentum in the last little while. You support them, you build on the bright spots, you identify those, you encourage and understand what their needs are to grow better and stronger. 80% of job growth typically occurs locally. It's not outside in, it's inside out. It grows organically and would make sure that those business leaders were in place to continue what's been very successful for us.
Mr. Stevenson, 2 minutes.
Part I've already talked a little bit about, and I think it's important that we focus on the right things because most of bringing businesses into our community really means a lot of hard work, going out and connecting and networking with those companies and bringing them in. So we have to target the right companies, then go and work and bring the companies in. As Mike had indicated, our current economic development department, they as everything is going right now, they're going to bring 1,000 jobs a year into our community. And I think that we can work a little harder and a little smarter, and we can bring in a few more jobs than that. I think that it's important that not only do we go and work hard, that we work smart. And I think the very best way for us to do that is relative to a conversation that I had with Gage Froh, a representative from the state, who had indicated to me that in this conversation that he had connected with a group of national developers that were bringing companies into Utah, and he asked them whether or not they would bring companies into Ogden to help us out, and each of them said that they would not, because they didn't believe that they would be treated the way that they wanted to be treated here in Ogden. Now, where that comes from, how it's true, I don't know, but the reality is we need to spend effort connecting with businesses that bring in business. We need to develop relationships with them and make sure that they understand that they can trust us and that they can expect that they'll get only the best treatment when they bring businesses into our community. And when we create that open business attitude in our community, then we'll have businesses helping us bring jobs into Ogden. So in addition to that, I guess the final thing that I would say is that it's very critical that we create an atmosphere here in Ogden, talking about regulations, talking about deregulating, making it easier for businesses to do business in Ogden as far as business licensing, as far as how they deal with the city. If it's easier for them to do business here, then they will come here, and they'll be here with us, helping bring jobs and stability to the economic sectors of our city.
Mr. Caldwell, you have 1 minute, and I think we heard in your first response a lot of talk about what has already occurred. How do you move forward? In what way does your job plan move the city forward?
Well, I met this afternoon with the Weber Economic Development Corporation, the director of the Chamber, Ogden-Weber Chamber of Commerce, and with some of the people from Ogden City's Economic Development Corps. We talked about what was in the pipeline, what some of the weaknesses and strengths were as they've gone out and approached these different companies and communities and tried to bring people in. The relationship piece of this is key. It's not making cold calls. It's not chasing our tail like that. It's making direct contact with the people that are decision makers and building relationships with them. I believe they have that. The 3 presidents of those organizations said our biggest weakness right now is marketing of Ogden. We need a good marketing plan. We need materials we can give to these companies so they understand what we're about. And I think we're starting on a great path with that, with some of these different events that build credibility in who we are and what we're able to produce and promote. So the marketing piece, all 3 of those people that have been heavily invested in the recruitment of jobs said that was the biggest missing link and the biggest weakness we have as a city right now is a real solid marketing plan.
Next question. What do you see as the greatest challenges facing the city? And let's not a litany of challenges, but let's say 1 to 3 challenges that face the city, and what will you do about it? And we start with Mr. Caldwell. Excuse me, Mr. Stevenson.
I think that, where do we start, right? I think that there are a lot of issues that Ogden needs to deal with. First and foremost, we've talked a lot about it, and that's economic development and making sure that we have jobs. We've got lots of folks that are driving to Salt Lake City every day for a job. We need jobs here in Ogden for them. Those are problems that we have to solve, and we can do that with redevelopment of our downtown and these focused efforts to bring businesses and jobs into our community. So that's the easy one. We've talked a little bit about it. The second one is we need to stabilize and improve some of our most troubled neighborhoods. And this is a more difficult and challenging problem. But I think the foundation of even fixing some of our neighborhoods and the problems that are there is related to business as well. Because when you bring in business and increase the business vitality of a community, then we have some additional dollars from that growth in order to invest in our community. For example, in the last budget and last several budgets, we've taken, and I am definitely focused very much on making sure that our neighborhoods, especially in the East Central area, are improved. We've taken dollars from BDO, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and from that growth and the lease revenue from Business Depot Ogden, and put it into neighborhood redevelopment, into programs that help decrease the number of units in homes so that home by home we can go through neighborhoods and rebuild that housing stock that will make Ogden great. In addition to the focus on bringing the dollars into the neighborhoods in order to deal with the problems, we have to connect with community organizations to help us. nonprofit organizations and other community organizations. We have to deal with the slumlord issue in our community. We have to make sure that it's expensive to be a slumlord. We have to make sure that landlords are taken care of in the way they need to be. Thank you.
And Mr. Caldwell, 2 minutes.
The two biggest things I see right now are the economy, keeping that humming, keeping the economic development we've seen and enjoyed here in the last little while forward. And one key piece of that a lot of people haven't talked about is the education and the quality of education we have here. I have a good friend that moved a solar company here within the past month. 28 high-paying engineers that came in wanted to plan into this community, and they looked at the school's test scores and decided to move out. And all 28 of them drive into the community for work. We couldn't keep them here because of some of those test scores. I think we need to look at improvements in the education system. Part of that is, as Brandon mentioned, we stabilize some of these neighborhoods so you don't have a transitional type of student population. They're here for the long term. They drop roots in these neighborhoods. They own their homes. They're proud of where they live. They take care of that. I think we'll see reductions in crime as a result of that. But I think improving those neighborhoods and getting those kids in our schools to be successful as they come out of them is very, very critical. I've been part of a parent organization that has worked with the school board for the past 3 years to bring the International Baccalaureate into Ogden High School. We've seen a turnover of the superintendent and a number of different challenges in the last little while. I think the mayor's office and the administration and the city need to keep in front of them and keep encouraging improvements in education. I think the economy, as we've seen, it's tied closely to that. We can bring in these jobs if this is a place people see as an area their kids will be successful, they want to grow up in, and our parents will want to grow old in. I think we'll be successful in continuing some of the trends we've seen in the economy. But jobs and education are very closely tied together, and they both need to have a lot of attention, in my opinion. Crime has also been something that's been key, and I think as we stabilize those neighborhoods, that will drop.
Mr. Stevenson, you have a minute. I'd like you to address as well, if you can, the issue of education. I mean, that is something that the mayor, that is not the purview of the mayor. The mayor's purview is not education. That's the school district's purview.
That is exactly correct. I want to point out all of my children, I've got, well, 3 of the 4 that are in school are going to Ogden City Schools. I am invested in making sure that the schools happen. And even though we don't have direct responsibility as a mayor over the school system, that is the Ogden City School Board, we do have influence, and there are things we can do. We must take a larger look. And I think that primarily our focus as a city, in cooperation with the school district and others, we're focusing on those neighborhoods and improving them. That's the first thing that we can do in order to improve education in our community. The second thing we can do is to allow our city resources to be used in such a way that it assists the schools with doing the job that they're there to do. In other words, having our police officers in schools in order to teach them with the DARE programs and making sure that we're effectively dealing with the truancy issue and making sure that kids are in school, because if they're not in school, they can't learn. And lastly, I think that it's very important that we work with the community and other organizations. I'm currently working with the YMCA in an organization who's developing a community center next to Lincoln Elementary School. And I think their idea is to connect with the school and the community and bring them together.
Next question. You've already mentioned it, the issue of safety in the neighborhoods. And you've talked about job creation, that job creation would somehow bring safer neighborhoods. What, in your view, could the police department be doing better? What could the police department be doing differently that it isn't doing now to create safer neighborhoods in the city? Mr. Caldwell.
Well, I think we've seen some fantastic trends in terms of crime reduction in this community. One of the things that we've talked about, I talked with Chief Greiner about, I think that the police department could adopt some of the code enforcement that goes on with a different department. They could get in front of some of those repeat offenders and make sure that they've got the pressure to clean up and stop illegal activity. There are a lot of drug homes. The police know exactly who they are. And if we put code enforcement with the police department on certain cases, they would have another tool in their toolbox to go and confront these multi-generational gang homes and drug homes. The Good Neighbor program, the landlord program, I think is absolutely critical to improving that, and that needs to have some teeth to it. I have also toured the Real-Time Crime Center. That's been in place for about 6 weeks. It blends a whole bunch of different technologies such as Google Earth and mapping and databases that we haven't had access to in the past, and I think you're going to see some very, very exciting trends in terms of proactive policing. It's a matter of limited resources. You don't have enough money to put a policeman on each corner, so utilizing those new technologies and leveraging what's out there, I think, is critical. And I also really believe that after-school programs are a critical part of raising good kids instead of trying to fix broken adults. And we need to invest in those after-school programs and in getting kids into healthy environments so they can learn how to deal with things, have some hope, be healthy, and plug into the community instead of feeling ostracized. I spent 8 years as a troubled youth counselor when I put myself through college, and it was critical that they find active things to plug into and reasons to find hope and groups that they can get into that are healthy instead of destructive. So pulling them out, giving them after-school programs, I think is a critical way to reduce crime in the future.
Mr. Stevenson, what should the police department be doing differently to create safer neighborhoods?
Well, I want to start by saying that our police department does a lot of things really well. In fact, they're a very good enforcing police department. Where I think they lack a little bit would be in their community policing and their connection with the citizens themselves. We have a department in our police department, which is the community policing department. There's 8 members of this department, and one is assigned to an eighth of the city, so to speak. And it's their job to connect with citizens and give them their cell phones and teach neighborhood watch classes and make sure that if there's a drug house in their neighborhood, that they're talking and connecting with their neighborhood, with their community policing officers. The problem is that these community policing officers have so many other jobs that they're redirected and going in 100 different directions except the one that they should be going in. Prioritization is key in making sure that our police department works with our citizens on a one-on-one basis to communicate and connect with those problems in their neighborhoods. Without that connection, it all falls apart. And the neighborhoods, if they don't have that communication back and forth, the neighbors think that the police don't care, which is not the case. The reality is we just need to allow those police officers to have the time. I am proposing that we reorganize the prioritization of our police department and maybe have fewer traffic officers and more community policing officers, decrease their area, increase their service, increase their serviceability to those areas, and make sure we do things like have our community policing officers knock on doors of every person in their area that they represent.
Mr. Caldwell, 1 minute.
The community policing department, I believe when I talked about the after-school programs, that's one area police officers have volunteered for, have been involved in, and I think we could give additional resources to those officers to get in there. A lot of kids grow up with a real fear of them. I believe they've got to get out of their cars as well. I've seen it's been fun in the summer to see a lot of police officers on bicycles as they run around. It's much easier to approach an officer on a bicycle in some of these little different neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are having issues than it is to see a patrol car drive by and be scared with the shotgun in the middle of the console and everything else. So getting them out of their cars, getting them involved with our youth and into those problem areas are critical.
At one point, gentlemen, there was talk of a gondola system here in the city. Now talk of a streetcar system and a police blimp. On these ideas, where do you fall, Mr. Stevenson?
Well, I consider myself an open-minded and proactive guy. So I'll have to say that I like a good idea when I hear it, and I'll try and work to make a good idea happen. Sometimes good ideas don't happen. And I think in terms of a gondola up the mountain, it was never a real project anyway. I served on the city council for 8 years. There was never really a project. So you can't support it if it's not real. As far as the blimp, that's an entirely different thing. It's kind of a unique part of the question. I really am an advocate to make sure that our police officers have as much technology helping them do their jobs as possible, because every advantage they have that the criminals don't have gives them an opportunity to create a safer community for us. And so I support the blimp, and I would continue to support it because I think that, of course, under administrative guidelines that would keep it in order. because there are some concerns about it, and I certainly would recognize those concerns also. In terms of the streetcar, the current proposal I think is too expensive, and it's not quite viable enough, although I am open-minded to it in that if we could figure out a way, technology-wise or something, to make it cheaper, then we could and figure out a way to make it work and do it so the citizens could actually afford it, then I would certainly be for it. Yeah.
Mr. Caldwell.
I agree. I was in a lot of different conversations and have had a lot of different people talk about the gondola. We hit all of those neighborhoods in and around the Mount Ogden Golf Course, and it turned into it wasn't so much about the gondola, it was about selling all of Ogden's East Bench and open space there. And that was the key issue a lot of people had with that. It turned into a novel idea and quickly turned into something that was an albatross that just wasn't going to happen, and we knew that it didn't really have legs. So it's still a very divisive issue and topic, though. It's amazing it still comes up because we haven't seen or heard anything about that in really for 4 or 5 years that I'm aware of. Streetcar, I agree. It's a great concept. I've met with UDOT, UTA, and the administration on that. Federal funding is not available for that right now. I think it's important we keep all of those options on the table. That pendulum might swing and it might become available. I think it's a real unique idea, but it's something we can't afford now and we can't afford to operate. So if we find ways to reduce the estimated operating deficit on that, I think it's a conversation that should continue. And I've looked at the police blimp and the videos and the promotional information they have on that. I think it's got some very unique uses. It can fly over industrial areas, provide an additional layer of safety for our law enforcement and fire if there are chemical fires or there are issues that threaten the lives of humans. It can fly over. They do a lot of that with bomb control and putting robotics into homes that have threatening issues there. I think the blimp can have very viable uses in a lot of those regards. What I don't want to see is it flying over residential areas and, as people have said, peeking into windows and doing everything else. I think it has to come with some very strict operational guidelines, but I think it's got some very, very unique uses, and it's very cheap to operate. You can put that in the air for 4 hours and observe real key sensitive areas for very cheap. It costs you hundreds of dollars, and it's a big warning every time a helicopter would go up. So it gives us some options and some tools in our quiver that we don't currently have.
Mr. Stevenson, you have a minute.
The couple of the issues you talked about are really transportation issues, and I think it points to the fact that we do need to identify and make sure that we're focused on the right issues in Ogden. And as far as transportation is concerned, there are some really important things we need to worry about. First, Harrison Boulevard is it's a concern right now. Wasatch Front Regional Council says they want to widen it, and I don't think that people want that. So making sure that we come up with a plan and tell the regional planners what it is we want to do is an important thing. The connections into North Ogden, the traffic that comes along that street, moving it down to Monroe, the traffic downtown, and the potential of a circulator, moving traffic and connecting and making it walkable and unique, I think are all things that we need to be worried about and concerned about.
Next question is a what-if question. You've talked about priorities. You've talked about your vision. If the city had a windfall of, say, $1 million, where would you put it, Mr. Caldwell?
$1 million doesn't cover a whole lot in terms of overall city services.
Make it $10 million.
$10 million. That's a little more play money right there. There are a number of different options. I think one of the things we need to talk or look at in terms of a recreational amenity here is we need to improve Ogden City's pools. We had a number of people come up to us during the commission run last time, said we had more kids that tried out for some of the swim teams in Ogden City than they had try out for the football teams. And there's not a single swimming pool here that kids could get into. So I would look at some options with partnering with RAMP and some other groups to provide, I think, what is a very needed asset for our children here, which is, and our seniors. Some of those swimming pools and aquatic centers do great things for people in the community. $10 million, we would look to put some more officers out there. Like I mentioned before, I'd love to see some of the after-school programs increase. And Ogden City's recreation department, I think, could use a little money. They're running on a shoestring with that. I can't tell you how many doors I've knocked on with parents that have children that are very frustrated when they compare Ogden City's recreation program and what we offer compared to what a lot of the other communities surrounding us offer. So some of those quality of life pieces I think would certainly be in consideration. But we'd put all of those different projects on the table. It's something I'd work with City Council to identify priorities. where we cut budgets in the past. Obviously, the municipal employees need to be recognized and compensated if they haven't had merit increases. We'd look at everything, but I think would give us some unique options. So if you have an idea on how we can do that, I'd certainly take that into consideration and chase it.
Right. Mr. Stevenson, he talked about pools, police officers. What about you?
Those were all great ideas. I give that to him. I think that, with $10 million, the pool is open, no pun intended. And I think that what we'd focus on, I think that it's a good balance would probably be where my administration would focus. Some of it would have to go to business. Increasing the number of small business loans that we could give out in our community, for example, would be a good use of this money. We could use some of that money to invite businesses into BDO. So those are unique ways that we can actually create business in our community. But in addition to that, our infrastructure is always an issue. And wherever I go and knock on doors, there are people that say, "Gosh, my sidewalk is a problem, and it can always use more money." We put 50,000, 100,000, 200, 300,000. We add additional money for every year the council has over the last 6 years, which I approve, making sure that that's ongoing money. If it's one-time money, it's a little bit different. But improving that infrastructure and improving our sidewalks. We've got infrastructure, sewer and water infrastructure, where we just spent a $50 million bond in order to improve that infrastructure, and yet we've got another potential $50 million that we need to spend. So there's a lot of potential in terms of water and sewer projects that need to be dealt with. In addition to that, I think that it's important that we remember that the downtown and the transit corridor needs to be connected. We're working on right now a promenade along Grant Avenue where we could put some of that money in infrastructure in order to create a walkable atmosphere that connects maybe the parkway with the downtown itself and turns Grant Avenue into kind of a promenade that connects that. That will all take money, and everything we do in order to affect and improve downtown, requires a little bit of money. And again, I think that really is the city council's job to determine where it goes, but I try and convince them to use the money in order to benefit, different areas. And
Mr. Caldwell, he talks about business and infrastructure. You talk about pools and police. You have a minute.
One of the things I think that would be critical to consider with this, there are a lot of federal grants out there that require a dollar-for-dollar match. And the hardest thing for communities of this size to do when you've got a very tight budget and you've been in a recession for the last 8 years is to find those dollars to match. So before we spent any money, I'd meet with the council and other groups and identify different federal grants we could use to leverage those dollars. I would look at going from 1 or 10 million in our local spending, if we're able to bring 10 million in federal in, look at what options we'd have there. But there are a number of ways to double community dollars if you do have a one-time windfall like that. And I think that would be part of a collaborative effort. You'd sit on that and try to make the best choice possible to leverage those dollars.
I want to ask you a question that both of you have undoubtedly heard before, but I'll put a little twist on this question as well. Often when candidates run for office, there is the inevitable question of what makes you the best candidate, what makes you the best qualified. The question that I have is, yes, what makes you the best candidate? But also, what makes you the best candidate relative to your opponent's weaknesses? And Mr. Stevenson, we start with you, 2 minutes.
I think the reason why I am better qualified for mayor of Ogden City is because there's a few reasons. I'll list off a couple of them for you. I think I have the qualification of serving on the city council for 8 years gives me some unique perspective into not just the relationship between the administration and the city council, but how the city runs and who runs it. Those are very important. That's a very important knowledge base that will allow me to come running into the job and not have to figure out what it is I'm doing. Second, I'm educated with a master's level education locally at Weber State University, and I think it's important to understand the importance of education and to have that business background. It's a master's of business administration. Then third, I think that I am proven in business. I have 25 years of private sector experience. And what that does for me is because it's a combination of small business and corporate business, it gives me a good overall understanding of how business works. And in addition, it makes me grit my teeth with how slowly government runs, and gives me the motivation to do whatever it is that I can do in order to push the train that is government. And that's something that has to be ever pressured and ever moved in order to get any movement at all. And I think that that's ultimately comes from, the business, my business mentality. So,
Mr. Caldwell, you have 2 minutes.
I would say the biggest difference between myself and Brandon right now is I've had 4 different positions within this community as either president, CEO, or board chair. Brandon's had 8 years on the city council, and according to my knowledge, hasn't been as either vice chair or chair of that. I've been in leadership positions. I have 50 people under my employ at Weber County, manage a $5 million budget and 4 different departments there. So the ability to manage multiple projects, many different people, encourage them emotionally to get invested in what we're doing, I've got a great deal of experience in. During the Olympics, I managed 500 volunteers through my position there, and with the president of the Goal Foundation last year, we had over 1,000 volunteers that came to the table and invested their time and energy in the production of these events. The mayor's not a dictator. I think it's critically important that they encourage and inspire people to get involved, and I've got a long track record of doing that. One person's not going to make all of those differences. That leadership piece is what sets me apart, and it's the biggest reason I decided to get into this race.
Mr. Stevenson, 1 minute.
Thank you. I think that I just have to reiterate that as far as leadership goes, that I've been engaged in the community, not just on the city council, but in various other organizations where I've taken a leadership role that are unique and give me a varied amount of experience. Ogden Housing Authority, for example, served as 3 years as chair, a couple of years as vice chair of that organization. Been a member of the executive board of Downtown Ogden Incorporated. Been a member of the Utah Leagues of Cities and Town executive board for 3 years. Central Weber Sewer District Board of Directors. And in addition to that, my business experience has allowed me to work with as many as 50 people organized and managing the operations departments at 4 different sites around the western United States. I think that managing projects that are $1 million and focusing on a $130 million budget as a city council member. So I think I understand budgets and I understand leadership and I understand exactly what needs to happen in order to run the city.
You've both talked about your impressive credentials and qualifications. Now about your weaknesses, your own weaknesses. Mr. Caldwell, we'll start with you. Why, if I'm an employer and I'm looking at you and I ask you this question, what are your weaknesses? Why shouldn't I hire you? What would you say?
Well, nobody ever gives a direct answer to that one. Why shouldn't I hire you? You always talk about why you should hire me. I think if I were to put one out there, it would be for this position. I haven't been in the city government, and it would take a little while to figure that out, but that's why you have appointed positions, people that have been in there, that are professionals, that understand their departments and what needs to happen in them. So coming into this position, I think you have a lot of resources and support to cover what would be my weakness is coming into this. I have not worked in the city. I've been on the county level. I know how everything works over there. I imagine they're not too dissimilar, but there would be a learning curve for me to get in there. But you do have a lot of different resources at hand that would help me get through that initial process. Mr.
Stevenson, your weaknesses.
Oh, I don't have any weaknesses. No, I think probably. I'll name a couple for you. The first one I think is I'm definitely a big picture thinker. I look at the big picture and I rely on people to understand the details for me. And I think generally that it's important that I make sure I surround myself with people that understand what it is they're doing. And in my administration, I would certainly do that for the same reasons that Mike mentioned, because they will assist to offset those weaknesses. In addition, as far as my management experience goes, I've never actually managed down multiple levels of management like city government is, and that bureaucracy, I think, can sometimes be daunting to upper-level managers, and I would require then those same people that I have hired to work with me to help me deal with those issues and to manage down each of those levels, in addition to creating ways to streamline the bureaucracy so that so there's not so many levels of management.
Mike Caldwell will give you another chance to talk about your weaknesses if you prefer. If not,
Prefer to let that one go.
okay. Next question. Let's break with format here for just a couple of yes/no answers. All right?
Oh, we don't like yes/no answers.
Well, I know you don't, but but let's just do a couple of yes/no answers. And we'll start with you, Mr. Stevenson.
Okay.
Fair enough?
You bet.
If you're elected mayor, you will change department heads, yes or no?
Will I change department heads?
Yes.
Are you talking department heads or directors? Directors are the high level.
All right, directors.
Okay, director level. I would not change the director levels of the city. I think that functionally they work very, very well together. I would work with the directors in order to determine at the department level what it is we need to do in order to effectively manage the city.
Mr. Caldwell.
That was a yes/no question, wasn't it?
That was a
Sorry.
yes/no question. Will you change directors? If not department heads, directors. I think we're talking semantics here. Some cities call it department heads. If Ogden calls them directors, the state calls them
the director level is the higher level, the ones that are just under the mayor. And
okay.
no, I would not.
No. Okay, Mr. Caldwell, yes or no?
No, I'm not looking to do any department changes right now.
Mr. Caldwell, let's start with you on this. As mayor, you will agree not to take a pay raise, yes or no?
From where I'm not looking for a pay raise. That's set by the city council and was last year, so no, I'm not looking to increase the mayor's salary.
Mr. Stevenson.
This year, with this election, with Mayor Godfrey stepping down, or excuse me, the beginning of next year, then the pay for the mayor will increase from about $72,000 to $108,000. And yes, I would accept it. And when I approved it and voted for it as a city council member, I did it because I believe that the mayor's job is worth it, and we wanted to make sure and attract good people. And we have. So I certainly would accept the salary, yes.
How do you see your role as mayor? You've alluded to this already, but if you were to describe the position which you are seeking, how would you do it? And we'll start with Mr. Stevenson.
Repeat the question one more time for me.
How would you describe the mayor's role? How would you describe do you see your role?
The mayor's role is the role of the implementer. He's the doer. He's the one who organizes the people, the city employees, with the exception of the city council office, in order to get things done. And to a degree, he's working off policy decisions from the city council, and there are some administrative decisions that are left to him by law. So writing contracts and how he gets that done is often left up to him. But ultimately, if something's going to get done in the city, it's going to get done because the mayor is the one proposing it and focusing on it and making sure that it happens. And so as the mayor, I see my job as the individual who makes the city go round.
Mr. Caldwell.
You are often referred to as the CEO of Ogden City, so you manage all of those budgets. I also think it goes down to every level. So any problems that come up, anything that you need to address, you need to be in front of all of those problems and have great relationships with your department directors to do that. I also see you as the chief cheerleader for Ogden. You need to reach outside of just the administrative functions to bring different attention and energy here. You work with the state, you work with the state legislators. You're a key person to bring all of that attention and visibility to this community. A lot of the implementation of those goals and desires certainly happens on the department level, and you're ultimately accountable for that. But I really believe that the mayor needs to be reaching into the other communities and being the chief community builder as well.
Mr. Stevenson, you have a minute if you'd like.
Yes, thank you. I do think that that collaboration is, it really is a chief part of what the mayor has to do. In fact, not just connecting with other communities, but connecting with groups and organizations within our community, such as Weber State University, the Ogden School District, Weber County, and all the organizations that make the city go round. The mayor is an integral part of making sure that those connections are made and that we're cooperating in efforts to improve our city. So collaborative efforts with all of those around us in order to accomplish something and get something done.
One final question. If you've talked about your vision again, but if someone were to say, let's project out 4 years from now, you've served one term as Ogden mayor. Fill in the blank to this question. If I have not accomplished blank, then I don't deserve to be reelected. If I haven't accomplished blank, I do not deserve to be reelected. Mr. Caldwell.
A similar question I fielded in one of the open debates, and in that one I have said I would like to have seen at least 3,000 jobs come into this community. I'd like to see close to a double-digit decrease in crime over those 4 years, a 25% increase in tourism taxes, and a market increase in home ownership. We have we have a huge rental pool, and some of these neighborhoods, statistics show that you need to have 60% of owner-occupied homes in those neighborhoods to stabilize them, and I think we can do that in a lot of key areas. And so increasing homeowner occupancy in those areas by leveraging some of the unique programs Ogden City has, I think those are very accomplishable goals.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, I think that that it really, for me, it would boil down in answering that question. What if I've not accomplished what? Then I think it would be the revitalization of downtown. If you don't see a change, if you can't see it, if you can't see people walking around downtown, if you can't see buildings coming up out of the ground, if you can't see businesses coming into our community, if you can't see retail popping up on the west side of Wall Avenue on 12th Street, then I think I could say that I don't deserve to move on, because I think those are critical. In addition to that, I think that it's important that we see the changes in our neighborhoods, that we walk down the streets of our neighborhoods and that we feel safe in our neighborhoods, and that we see that families are moving back into our neighborhoods, and that we're creating an atmosphere where people want to come to Ogden. They choose to come here. I need to be able to feel that in order to feel like I'm accomplishing something.
Mr. Caldwell, are you saying that if you don't create 3,000 jobs and if crime does not go down 25%, then you should not be reelected?
Tourism tax increased by 25% and close to a double digit.
Okay. All right.
It's impossible to say what's going to happen with the future. In 2008, to make a claim like that and have the recession hit, the worst recession we've ever seen, obviously those numbers will change. But given current trends and where we are right now, I think those are very, very achievable, and I would want to be held to a standard. I want to go into this with some very concrete goals and be held to those. And was this the last question?
Yes.
All right, well, Brian, I'd like to thank you for moderating.
We have concluding remarks too.
Okay.
I'll give you a shot at concluding remarks. Break format just for a moment to Mr. Stevenson. Are you also saying that if you don't see that revitalization downtown and buildings are not being built, then you should be a one-term mayor?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
All right, we will go ahead with concluding remarks then. Each of you have 2 minutes. And I believe we started with Mr. Caldwell, correct? So let's begin with Mr. Stevenson for concluding remarks.
Thank you. And I want to thank you very much for being here. It's our privilege, and I want to thank Mike for this opportunity. We'll have a few more, and I am looking forward to it. I think that Ogden is a fabulous place. I love Ogden, and Ogden is a place that I have a passion for. I think that there are so many ways that so many of us can be involved in our community. And one of the things that I haven't talked about, and it doesn't get talked about near enough, is the fact that people, all of us, we need to be engaged and focused on doing the right thing. And whoever it is that becomes the mayor of Ogden City, I hope that all of us, will stay actively engaged in order to improve Ogden so that it becomes the place that all of us hope that it can become, so that there's a vibrant economy in Ogden. so that we have communities where people want to live, so that we have stable and safe neighborhoods, so that we have a strong educational system. Those are all very concrete and good goals that we all should be working towards. And frankly, one mayor doesn't make a big difference. What really makes a difference is everybody gathering around the same common interests and goals and making it happen. So that would be my plea, is that whatever happens, that we're all working together for the common interest and best interest of Ogden City.
Mr. Caldwell, 2 minutes.
I agree. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I mentioned earlier in the evening, to reiterate, it's not one person that makes a difference. It's the community that rises and lifts itself up. Brian, I appreciate you being here, volunteering your time. It's nice to see you again. I've been doing that in Ogden City now for the last 8 years. We have inspired and motivated people to get involved, get engaged, care about where they are, have pride in place, and we've brought a tremendous number of people from outside of the community in to recognize the assets that make us so unique. I look forward to continuing that. I agree, Brandon. Going through a campaign is an amazingly unique experience for people. I appreciate anybody that's willing to put themselves through that. I think we have 2 good candidates. Ogden City is going to see a different tone through this campaign and into the general elections. Well, I'm very excited about that, and I'm extremely optimistic about Ogden's future.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. I've enjoyed it, enjoyed the interchange. Best of luck to both of you in the campaign season and on Election Day. And thank you very much for being with us for this Ogden mayoral debate. Enjoyed this debate session as well. More to come as the election draws near. Good night.